that is the name. Like, I was like,
yeah, man.
How did you come up with that? I was like, serious. I was tripped out. Like, this is wild. Like, I love that. Love that name.
Man, we're back on our wonderful set here. Just set up beautifully by our set designer Reka. Just amazing job
big
again.
Shout out to Reka
Give you a big shout out again. But man, we're here unpacking the journey of our, I guess, part in creating this series. We knew we needed to start a production company, and so this episode is going to be a little bit about our production company, Into the Storm Productions, and how we kind of arrived there and came up with the name and all that good stuff. So
yeah, I mean, the last episode we were talking about without an investor, without money behind a film, you go nowhere. So introduce our investor. It was phenomenal. It was amazing God story there. But then we're like, okay, well, let's hey, we got to put together a production company. Start adding a team takes a massive entourage of people. As anybody, when you watch films or television series, you just see the names and credits of all the people. So it takes a huge team, but at the top, we're assembling a team of just epic producers and so on, which we'll introduce as the episodes go along. But we're like, well, we gotta start a production company.
That's
so first off, it was like, well, what's the name?
yeah,
What's the name? And that was an interesting journey in of itself. But like for Brian, I mean, I know this is like American Revolution, but then, of course there's a flavor of Portuguese, history here. And so do we go in that direction? Do we go with like a tricorn hat or name? I mean, there's just so many different directions you can go with a name. And so the brainstorming and then Brian threw a curveball name at me, and I was like, what? All right. I was like, all right, come again now?
yeah.
Hey, you're going to have to explain yourself.
Well,
as Lucid Ball used to say, explain.
Yeah, explain yourself.
No, Ricky, you have some explaining to do.
I think what happened, so we were talking about the name, and the name's so important. I feel like, especially for a production company or if you start a business or whatever, I feel like there's so much in that goes into a name, because when you're starting something from scratch, you want the name to kind of encompass the overall feeling of what you're doing, of what your business is going to provide or represent, or so. And for our particular, production, just our passion in this. Yeah. You were talking about, I want this like kind of patriotic theme, like, I don't know, Freedom Productions or Warrior, something along. And those were all sentiments that I felt as well. But I think how it came up was like, dude, I really want it to be more like not so much just freedom, like a catchphrase, but more like an overall attitude.
Yeah.
Right. An overall just mentality of what we want our production company to represent. And I didn't want it to be pigeonholed into just the revolution or just like a war theme. I wanted it to mean more. And then so when I started thinking about it, and then told you
and
about,
to get away from a cliche too, and that was the thing in my mind, which Luso, even just to get away from a cliche.
Yes.
Luso, but so here with a production name, it's like there's so many freedom and words you can come up with that are kind of cliche.
Yeah.
But so back to the attitude, which I love the direction you were going. I'm like, okay, so the attitude.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang, I'm just drawing a blank until you threw a curveball at me. So
yes. So with that kind of in mind, I was like, man, I know from my journey and much like yours as an entrepreneur, in other areas of your life with your environmental business, and you've started multiple businesses. Right. You've had successes, you've had failures.
Yep.
But you've continued to forge ahead. You continue to keep going and trying and building and same with me. And I wanted that to be part of what we're doing with this as well. And I've seen several references and examples along the way in other areas of my life with this particular phrase or actually is the imagery of the buffalo, which you guys you'll get to see our logo which we had an incredible designer help us with. But there's this overall attitude with a particular animal that really resonated with me. And I actually got to see hundreds of them in the wild this past year at Custer State Park up in South Dakota. When I was at a motorcycle rally, actually traveling through Custer State Park, there's hundreds and hundreds of wild buffalo.
Or bison.
Or bison,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
And you see these, it was the first time I got to see these animals up close and personal and in the wild. And it was also mating season. It was starting to go into mating season, which is
now
a whole...
you just derailed the whole name of our production company.
Right. Well, it's a whole different beast because you get to see how powerful these animals really are. Because males are fighting for dominance and the affection of the female, right? But you get to see just how big and how powerful these animals are. So, but there's something very unique about a bison.
Right.
And that particular thing is what resonated with me, and how we came up with this was, bison live in colder climates, in inclement weather, and they tend to thrive in that. And one of the attributes of buffalo or bison is, when winter comes or a storm starts brewing on the horizon, most animals, humans, whether it be a real storm or a storm in life, a lot of animals and humans, we react in a way that we want to run from that. We don't want to feel uncomfortable. We want to feel pain.
Yeah.
And bison is very different. Buffalo is very different. When they feel that storm brewing, when there's a giant snowstorm on the horizon, instead of running from that storm, they put their head down and run straight into it. And the reason being is,
I did not know that. I honestly did not know that story.
Yeah.
Until Brian brought it up. I was like, really?
Yeah.
And I had to Google it. I'm like, that's crazy. For real. They run into the damn storm. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason for that is the quicker they get in it, the quicker they get out of it.
Yeah.
And much like in life, there's only growth in uncomfortable situations, right? You only learn through tough times. You truly only grow when you're being pushed, or when you're living in some type of uncomfortable moments. That's when you really grow and learn. And so when we were thinking about this name, I was like, man, that is just so cool. And the buffalo or a bison is just such a powerful image anyway on its own. But then you take that image and have it running towards a storm. It's like, okay, God, bring it. Let's do it. Because the quicker I get into this, the quicker I'm going to learn whatever I'm supposed to learn, and the quicker I'm going to get out of it and be better on the other side of it. And then, I told you that story, and we had a great conversation about it, and you were like, wait, what? That's what they do? No. Really?
I was like, that's a bunch of baloney.
Yeah,
that's a bunch of bullshiggity.
Yeah. And then after we had that conversation, that's kind of how we landed on that name, and then of course we started designing this logo around it, which you guys will get to see, and we're doing.
We'll dump it up on the show, but Into the Storm Productions.
Yeah,
there we go.
So Into the Storm Productions was born, and it's very much like other journeys in our life with business, family, whatever it may be. This journey, the Luso journey, has very much been one of forging ahead, running in and through storms.
Through the storm.
and
boy, do we have some story. We could have 100 episodes about the journey of running through the storms
and weathering those storms. And the cool part about it is, man, every one of those storms that we've been through has taught us something, and we've learned from it. And I feel like where we are now, this series is going to be such a better series because we went 100%. Through a lot of that stuff. Agree. And now we're at a place where, I'm sure there's more storms ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
There's no doubt. No doubt there are.
Yeah.
And that's life. I mean, it's like, when you get married, when you and Brooke got married a few years back, and you get married, like life is grand, you know?
Right.
And then you have a child.
Right.
Now you got two. But when you have a child, you're like, dang.
Right.
Man, life was blissful.
Yeah.
Well, it was just the two of us. Life was really blissful,
Yeah.
Then you have a child, you're like, wow, that's some rough storms ahead.
Yeah.
And the storms just continue with your children. Now, there's great days, of course, with our children, but then with their storms. And that's just life. Life is full of those storms. And that's what I love about the name Into the Storm. Like, man, we don't cower away from our storms. The only way to get through the only way to learn from the storm is to go into the storm.
Just to go into the storm, that's right, and not run from it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I couldn't be more proud of our name, and I couldn't be more proud of what it represents, and the challenges that we continue to face together,
together,
and overcome, man. And obviously, all with the good Lord's help and provision and guidance. But Into the Storm Productions.
And the other thing I love about the bison, and we chatted about this too, but when you think of the United States and early settlers, obviously there was Native Americans that were here.
Yes.
They knew about the bison, but the early settlers coming from Europe, they come and they're like, "What is this animal?" Yeah. They'd never seen an animal like that. So when you think of Africa, you think of the elephant, or you think of the United States. That is the animal that really kind of stands out as a unique animal.
Oh, for sure.
And a formidable animal. I mean, is like strong and just will run through a brick wall,
Yeah.
And so when you see, my wife and I have been to Yellowstone, taking our kids there through the years multiple times, and you see them in the wild like you were describing, and it's just, it takes your breath away.
Oh,
See them. Matter of fact, at Yellowstone, they'll be walking down the road. So you'll be driving, and they're like, walking next to your car, and like, I don't know if that's a good thing.
And they're so big.
Right, they're huge.
Just until you see a bison in person,
in real life,
you just don't realize just how massive
those
they are.
Things are.
Yeah,
I know.
Really are.
When we were, I've been to Old Faithful. They're the geyser that goes off every couple hours on the hour. It's just wild, but. The bison will hang out there, and
really?
So wild. And so you can walk up to them, and they're just kind of docile. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But the park rangers will tell you don't get too close because you think they're docile.
Oh yes.
And that thing could turn on you, and man, that thing will run you down.
Oh yeah.
But they're so used to people out there around Old Faithful. It's pretty wild. But anyway, So when you came up with the name Into the Storm and the bite, and he told me the whole story, I'm like, trip out, like the American, the story of Peter Francisco, and the beginning, the birthing of our nation, and I mean and just the sense of freedom and the fight for freedom and all of that. And I was like, that is the name. I was like,
man.
How did you come up with that? I was like, serious, I was tripped out. Like, this is wild. Like, I love that name. And then a big shout out to our graphic designer, John Guerra.
Yeah.
And so he's the one that really put our 2D logo. He's actually in the process of working on our 3D
logo, which we can't wait to show you.
Yeah, I can't wait to show you.
Amazing.
So we'll reveal that when the show.
Yeah.
Actually, when the torch, when we go on crowdfunding, we'll reveal the
our
3D logo.
Yeah, that's right.
The animated one.
Oh. Yeah. So here's to Into the Storm, bro.
That's right, bro. Yeah. Here's the End of the Storm. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Luso the Journey. If you're interested in following us, consider subscribing. Hit that button right down below. If you really want to check out the entire series, hit the playlist, and you can unpack more of the journey.